Snakes are dangerous with their teeth, and everyone knows it. Their two fangs infuse fear and terror, making us stay away from them. But actually, snakes have a lot more teeth, dozens of times more than you think. At least some of them do. In this edition, I'll show you a snake with 200 teeth in its mouth, and I'll also tell you about a variety of snakes you'll like. So who has the major number of teeth? Probably some kind of venomous reptile, right? Like a cobra, mamba, viper, that sort of thing. Actually, it's not. The toothiest snake is the boa constrictor. Yeah, it's as simple as that. The boa constrictor genus includes 5 species, and some of them have up to 200 teeth in their mouths. The best way to see is to look at the skull of a snake. It's likely to be the remnants of some scientifically unknown monster or a mythical creature, but I assure you, it's a boa constrictor. How does it keep its mouth from bursting open with so many teeth? It's because boa constrictors don't have such long teeth, but lots of very small ones. Boa constrictors use their teeth for different purposes. For example, they help them push food down their throats. Also, boa constrictors use their teeth to attract a prey. They neutralize their victim, simultaneously strangling it and biting it. It's a mix of pythons and poisonous crawlers tactics. By the way, as for poisonousness, boa constrictors are not that toxic, so nobody will die from their bite. But that doesn't mean you should test the nerves of boa constrictors. These snakes are more aggressive than many of their venomous relatives. Even a king cobra can easily finish off a man with a bite. It doesn't throw itself at someone indiscriminately and attacks only as a last resort. Boa constrictors are not ceremonious and fight against everyone. Although the boa constrictor is a common and widespread snake, we can call it a rare creature because not each crawler has so many teeth in their mouth. Look at really rare snakes that you didn't know about. Antiguan racer. Let's start with her. I'm sure that none or almost none of you has heard of such a creeper. Moreover, nobody of you has probably seen it. If you have, know that it's not surprising. Even many scientists who study snakes haven't seen these creatures, as they're incredibly rare. At the moment, the Antiguan racer is one of the rarest, and according to some reports, the rarest snake on the planet. There are only about 1,000 specimens left in the world. There are dozens of times more boa constrictors, for example, to such an extent that it's impossible to even count their total number. The Antiguan racer lives on several small islands near the Caribbean island nation of Antigua and Barbuda. The snakes themselves are considered completely harmless. These brown and non-venomous creepers definitely do not want to attack people. They simply don't care about that. For them, their main task is to survive. The creepers crawl around the islands, eat lizards, and are under the supervision of scientists. By the way, they managed to rectify a catastrophic situation. There were only a few dozen of the Antiguan racers in the world at the end of the last century. Scientists eradicated predatory rats that had disposed of the racers and started to protect the species. This way, the situation has improved, but it still remains critical. I guess I was in a hurry to call the Antiguan racer the rarest snake in the world. It's one of the rarest, no doubt, but there is a snake that's even more valuable. This time, it's the Santa Lucia racer. Those familiar with geography have already realized that this is the neighbor of the Antiguan snake in the Caribbean Sea. These reptiles live in the island nation of Santa Lucia, or rather survive, because there are less than 20 of them left in the wild. Given this, snakes need to be protected, and scientists are doing just that. They have a separate project to protect the reptiles, which may become extinct in the next few years. Scientists are making various attempts to preserve the species and trying different techniques, but so far they've had no luck. We can only hope that they succeed in preserving this interesting species. Well, as for the species itself, the Santa Lucia racers inhabit forests and bushes. These snakes are also not dangerous. They feed on small rodents, lizards, and frogs, and do not think of attacking people. And they also look exciting. The coloration of these stripes is variable. Some specimens have a wide brown stripe across the upper part of their body, and in other representatives of the species, the brown stripe is interrupted, alternating with yellow spots. And yet, in terms of appearance, there are far more interesting snakes. Did you know that there are hairy snakes? This is what they look like. This is the green bush viper. After seeing it once, you are unlikely to confuse it with another crawling reptile because it has a unique appearance. The snake's body is covered with voluminous scales. They're larger than those of most other snakes, which creates an original ruff pattern. In addition, this snake has a bright olive coloration. It doesn't only make the snake even more beautiful visually, but also perfectly hides it in the environment because the viper lives in African forests. There it feeds on rodents and other small animals. What about us? Well, on one hand, we can say that the green bush viper is not dangerous for us, but it is very difficult to come across it. You have to go into the middle of the woods to find this snake. On the other hand, from the moment of encounter, the snake becomes dangerous. It has a powerful venom that causes internal bleeding. The good news is that it doesn't spray itself with it much, so one bite is unlikely to finish a person off. However, there were cases in history when the green bush viper sent people to the other side of the world, so it's best to stay away from this beauty. California ribbon snake. While the green bush viper is still hard to spot somewhere in the wild, such a colorful specimen is hard to miss. The California ribbon snake boasts the most unusual coloration in the entire snake world. Its coloration is very interesting. There are longitudinal stripes of bright color and black spots. Bright red and mottled ribbon snakes are considered as the owners of the most unusual coloration. Many people call them the most beautiful snakes on the planet. Do you agree with this? Personally, I do. And most importantly, these snakes are not dangerous to humans. They belong to the family of the colubrid snakes, and as you know, you shouldn't be afraid of them. Such a beautiful creature is also unlikely to strangle. It's very slender and rarely exceeds a meter. This snake is rare not only in terms of its luxurious color, it's rare as a species. Unfortunately, the population situation leaves much to be desired. This is because the growth of cities and agricultural areas have deprived these creatures of their usual food, like small frogs, and this has made life very difficult for them. Now, not only scientists, but also other people are trying to help these snakes. For example, a couple years ago, a small population of California ribbon snakes took over an area at the San Francisco airport, but no one began to get rid of them. People took it in stride because scientists said the site was ideal for breeding these beautiful snakes. They're probably the only creatures in the world that like living near to the airport. White Texas Racer. It's been a long time since we had racers in this collection. It's time to rectify this misunderstanding. In addition, the White Texas Racer has every right to be called a rare and unusual snake. I think you can already see why. And no, it's not an albino, as you might immediately think. In fact, this snake has another feature. Creatures with this feature are devoid of any pigments, unlike albinos who lack the melanin pigment. The White Texas Racer has gained popularity in America, in its homeland. It's often bred at home or by various breeders. It's not surprising because this unique animal is not only beautiful but also not poisonous, like all the racers, so you don't need to keep an antidote with you. But don't think that the snake is white and fuzzy. It's only white. The Texas Racer can attack if it doesn't like anything or if it feels threatened. Its bites are painful and can cause unpleasant allergies. Blind snake. This snake, on the other hand, won't hurt a man. Yes, we're still in the snake edition. It's a real snake, even if it doesn't look like a classic crawler, but it is understandable because we can see the Barbadian blind snake, or Charles snake from the island of Barbados, the smallest snake on the planet. It can grow up to no more than 10 centimeters and looks like a worm. It's funny that at the same time there are earthworms on the planet that grow up to a meter and even more. On the contrary, they look like snakes here rather than worms. In short, the nature turned itself upside down. It's believed that the blind snake from the island of Barbados is practically the limit for snakes. There may even be smaller snakes in the world, but scientists haven't found them. Makes sense given that this tiny snake was found only 15 years ago. Scientists believe that if the snake were literally 1 centimeter smaller, it wouldn't have been able to find any food. But as it is, it eats termites and ant larvae. These are the only creatures that are afraid of such small creatures. As for size and food, the cubs of these snakes are also interesting. When they hatch from eggs, they're 5 centimeters long. The cub is half of the parent long. This is absolutely not normal for most representatives of the animal world, but that doesn't concern these creatures. Such length is a trivial necessity. Cubs get born maximally prepared for life. Scientists believe that if their body length were less than 5 centimeters, they would simply not be able to find food of suitable size. I didn't mention that the Barbados snake is unfortunately in an unenviable position and that its population is gradually declining. Things are no better for another rare creature, the Madagascar blind snakes. This is another snake that looks much more like a worm. However, these worms are bigger, about 25 centimeters long. Like Barbados snakes, these reptiles feed on termites and ants. They also opposed to people and predators, because of which the population of the Madagascar blind snakes is decreasing every year. Population of these snakes is reducing and it's possible they may die out soon. Okay, back to real snakes. Even though they exist in reality, I personally find it difficult to perceive them as snakes, but this reptile has all the attributes of a snake and even a little more. On top of everything else, it has horns. It's a horned viper, also known as a phi. What does that have to do with phi? Because this horned viper was recognized recognized by the ancient Egyptians in their hieroglyphics, where the Greek letter phi originated from. The horns of this viper seem to hint that the devil himself worked on it. After all vipers are known to be poisonous and dangerous, but when you have such intimidating horns, you're probably even more dangerous than the others, right? In a way, that's true. The bite of this creeper is toxic and potentially fatal if you don't manage to administer first aid. And that's possible because these creatures are found in the deserts of North Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. However, they do not only like moving in the wilderness, but also crawl into cities to people. It's difficult to notice this viper. It blends in with the terrain. It never attacks first, but a person may not notice the snake and accidentally step on it, which will be considered as a threat by the snake. And now the main thing, why does it need horns? Do they serve as a decoration or is it some kind of vestige? Neither. With the use of the viper phi burrows in the sand. The horned viper is rare and unusual in terms of appearance. That's a fact. But what about anything else super rare? One shocking by its appearance and giving birth very rarely? Two-headed snakes, for example. You wouldn't say these are ones of those creatures that are born every 1,000 years or something like that, but still it doesn't happen very often. We're lucky that such a reptile has been born in the UK recently. It's a two-headed snake. Despite its peculiarity, the snake can adapt quickly. The heads even learn to eat. True, in different ways. One head has a wider throat, the second less. So one absorbs food with appetite, but the second can swallow only small pieces of food. And this is the kind of snake found by a resident of Virginia in America a few years ago in his flower bed. It's the copperhead snake, another viper by the way. It bites toxic and very painful, a double threat here. Most likely this snake had already died and the one born in the UK probably won't last long. Snakes with this trait die at an early age, but there are some incredible exceptions. Here's one of them. It's a gray rat snake. Yes, once again we have a racer in the video, and it's been living for 17 years. That's an unrivaled record among two-headed snakes. Do you remember the one I told you about giving birth once every 1,000 years? Well, this case is not just 1 in 1,000, it's 1 in 100 million. And this is not just my speculation, but the words of scientists who have been studying snakes all their lives. Thanks to the efforts of the veterinarians and the staff of the animal center, the snake has lived a long life. The staff had to cover one head with a glass and feed the other, then switch to keep the two-headed unique from fighting over food. Two-headed snakes were variegated, small, and rare. Is there anything else to show you? What about this snake? It's the dwarf African viper. From the outside, it looks quite common and doesn't stand out, but has another interesting feature, its style of locomotion. Unlike most snakes, crawling quite flat and straight, this snake moves sideways, and it looks very strange and even creepy. This style of movement is not some kind of showing off in front of other snakes, but a measure of necessity. Imagine yourself on the beach on a very hot day without shoes. You have to walk barefoot on the hot sand to the water. How will you go? By stepping on your full feet or on your toes? Most likely you'll prefer the second option because it's supposed to be less painful. The snake does the same thing. Due to the strange movement of its body, only 2 points of contact with the sand. This helps the snake save more surface of its body from burns. Well, such an unusual lateral movement can confuse the creatures the dwarf African viper hunts, preys on small lizards. The reptile attacks them, bites, and injects poison into them. Soon the prey stops showing signs of life and the snake begins to eat. Now we turn to other reptiles. Stay with us. After all, an incredible experience with alligators is awaiting you. Rope. Walking on a rope at high altitude is generally something dangerous, and walking on a rope over a reservoir infested with alligators is something completely creepy. But the man on this video is not afraid of anything. He boldly walks the rope, throwing meat to alligators. Of course, the meat will make them happy, but if the guy falls down, he'll become a reptile's dinner. At one point he nearly fell, but he still kept his balance and made it to the end. Now, you're probably wondering, what if a man does fall to the alligators? What would that look like? We'll take a look. We see another daredevil performing in front of an audience. He doesn't just walk the rope, but performs various tricks and moves. He even dances on the rope. But his overconfidence plays against him, and he falls right to the toothy reptiles. One of them immediately rushes after him, but luckily the guy manages to get to the edge, and there he's literally pulled out of the water. What would the movie It have looked like if an alligator had starred in the movie, not Pennywise? I think it would go something like this. A man found an alligator in a sewage drain near his house. The creepy reptile stares into the camera with piercing eyes and scares just by its appearance. And here's another drain fan. According to the author of this video, 2 kids were playing ball near a storm drain, and the ball accidentally fell into it. When they tried to retrieve it, they found such a toothy local. They'll have to forget about the ball now. Enclosure. The alligator enclosures are not as safe as you might think, and this footage is a perfect example of that. A female zoo handler led the tour group to the alligator enclosure, and suddenly the reptile grabbed her arm. Every second counted. The woman could have lost her arm, so the man ran to save her. He forced the alligator to let go of the woman and then tightly squeezed its mouth for about a minute. Soon the hero managed to get out of the enclosure unharmed, and later the reptile was neutralized. The woman was only injured, but she was quickly cured. But the kids were also traumatized, at least psychologically. To see such a creepy scene at such an age is terrible. House. Imagine you're living in a house when suddenly you hear some noise in your backyard. Who might be making that noise? Thieves? Teenagers who have decided to make mischief? What about an alligator? If the house is in the US, it's entirely possible. This alligator caused quite a bit of chaos. The homeowners called in the dangerous reptile capture workers, and they threw some sort of lasso over the alligator to at least neutralize the monster a little bit. But it didn't really help. Then they began to catch the alligator. When one of the workers approached the alligator, it violently bit the cash pot and scared everyone around. Then the workers chose different tactics and began pouring water on the reptile. This helped subdue the predator, and soon they dragged it down the street into the wild. In the US, alligators can be found not only in the backyard of your house, even at sports games. There's no rest from these reptiles. Here, for example, a huge alligator was walking on the golf course. After the walk, the giant stretched out on the lawn. Maybe it just wanted to join the game and asked the players for a club. Road. In the north, deer and moose are often encountered on the roads. In South America, it's common to run into an anaconda on the road. In Florida, the roads are littered with alligators. A German cyclist was shocked to see that alligators can be stumbled upon on the most ordinary road in America. He had to zigzag and be careful not to hit the reptiles. However, the alligators turned out to be polite. All of them politely made their way for the foreign guest. The German was lucky that the alligators were in a good mood. But what if things had been different and the reptiles had been angry? Or what if he had accidentally bumped into the tail of one of them? Then the alligator would have attacked and it would have ended in a death roll. In this video, you can see what it is. The predator grabs its prey and begins to spin vigorously, clenching its teeth tightly. The strength of alligators' jaws is very powerful, so just a few spins are enough to deprive a victim of their limbs. In the same way, crocodiles deal with their prey. This trainer sits in such a position on the alligator's back on purpose, so that the alligator doesn't perform a death roll. But one mustn't forget about the dangerous jaws. The trainer made a mistake and the alligator bit his fingers. Although the trainer tells those around him that everything's fine and that the alligator doesn't hurt him, it's obvious that he's lying. The man had to be helped. The reptile's jaws were unclenched using a lever, a beam, and branches. So strong are the jaws of the alligators. By the way, there's an interesting fact. The muscles with which the alligator opens its mouth are much weaker than the muscles that close it. That's why the very man who rescued the zookeeper in the enclosure in front of the kids was able to hold the alligator's jaws closed. This is also why the trainer was unable to open the reptile's jaws himself. And here's another trainer. He works with crocodiles. He's teaching one of his charges something by prodding it with a stick. But the man made a mistake, angered the toothy reptile, and it attacked him by biting his leg. It looked brutal, but as the author of the video said, the man got off lightly and received only a few unpleasant wounds. Attack. The people in this video were rowing in a canoe on a river in Africa when they saw a crocodile. The crocodile was hiding underwater but came to the surface when it saw the guests. Then the crocodile hides under the water again. Only the waves make it clear that it's swimming towards the tourists. 15 seconds pass and here's an attack. Although it was expected, you have to admit that it looked very sharp and frightening. Jump. And now we're in Australia. The person on the next video is about to bungee jump into the river. The place doesn't seem to be the worst, and the jump was successful. The thrill seeker entered the water, but he entered exactly where a crocodile was waiting for him. And again, we see an attack. Crocodile pounces on the man, who dodges only by some miracle. After that, he immediately swims to the shore and rescues at the very last moment. That's a great reminder why you shouldn't swim in Australian rivers. In Africa, crocodiles prefer to attack animals rather than thrill seekers, and there are plenty of animals. A lion, hyena, a leopard, or a cheetah may visit a crocodile, but now we're looking at buffaloes. An entire herd of African bulls is quenching their thirst and cooling off at a body of water when suddenly one of them is grabbed by a crocodile. It's amazing how elaborate and masterful the ambush was. The crocodile approached as inconspicuously as possible and swiftly attacked. It was unreal to dodge the blow. The toothy creature firmly grabbed the bull, fighting its congeners and tourists, and began to pull it into the pond. The buffalo resists but is losing strength gradually. It's almost in the center of the pond and almost completely in the water. It struggles but then floats upside down. Is it dead? Turns out it's not. Somehow it was able to break away from the reptile and make it almost to the shore. There, the buffalo collapsed without strength. You bet the fight was grueling and brutal. Okay, I got carried away with crocodiles a bit. After all, they're not alligators, but other animals, though related to them. I suggest we go back to alligators and get to know them a little better. Keep watching. I'll tell you some interesting facts about alligators that you'll love. Let's start with size. Alligators are large, and you've seen that today. Remember at least the alligator that went to the golf course? But in fact, most alligators are not large and are 6.5 to 10 feet long. Larger males can reach 13 feet in length. And one of the all-time record holders, the alligator from the Alabama River, was 15.7 feet long. Crocodiles are much larger. For example, saltwater crocodiles often grow up to 17 feet in length or more. Occasionally, individuals with a length of about 20 to 23 feet are found among them. And Cassius, the largest crocodile on the planet, kept in captivity, has a length of 17.9 feet, with a weight of about a ton. Although alligators are not very large, they are very fast. In the water and at short distance, they can speed up to 19 miles per hour and up to 12 miles per hour on land. However, they are sprinters, so they run out of steam very quickly. Aggression. A running alligator is a scary sight, but it's not a fact that it's running to attack you. Unlike crocodiles, alligators rarely attack humans. This is because they're intelligent. They understand that humans are difficult prey, and it's much easier to hunt something smaller. For example, fish, birds, small reptiles, and small mammals. Eyes. The name alligator comes from the Spanish el lagarto, which translates as the lizard. As for me, it would be better if the name came from el gato, which means the cat. I mean it. Just look how the eyes of these reptiles glow in the dark, just like those of house cats. If you shine a flashlight on them, they'll glow red. That's because, like cats, these reptiles have a structure in the back part of their eyes that reflects light to improve night vision. Teeth. Here's an interesting fact. Alligators are considered the toothiest reptiles on the planet, as well as some of the toothiest animals in the world as a whole. An adult alligator has about 75 to 80 teeth in their mouth at one time. Moreover, an alligator does not have them for life. As the teeth wear out or break off, alligators replace them with new ones. As a result, some individuals may grow about 3,000 teeth during their lifetime. Alligators know very well how to use their teeth. They're very sharp and their jaws are very powerful. The bite force of an adult alligator is about 9,500 newtons. This is an incredible value. Right now, only two creatures in the world bite harder than alligators: the great white shark and the saltwater crocodile. So you definitely shouldn't mess with these reptiles. The alligators are dangerous animals with a massive perish, but how can we measure the biting force of this monster? Now I'll let you know. Bite force. Let's start with this interesting value. Bite force is one of the main determining factors in the animal world because it's thanks to jaws and teeth that predators can deal with their prey, and vice versa to fight them off. But how can you measure a wild animal bite force? You can't make it do it voluntarily, can you? That's right. That's why scientists use all sorts of devices and methods. Basically, it all depends on size. If the animal is small, it's easy to measure its bite force. Take a look at this frog as an example. A special device is placed in its mouth, after which the frog is squeezed slightly. This causes the amphibian to bite the object because it's a natural reaction to something unpleasant. Its bite force, by the way, was to 32 newtons. This is small value, but it's not surprising. The frog is very small. Other small and harmless animals' bite force is measured using a similar method. Okay? But what about the bigger, more dangerous creatures? Well, that's where we have to act smart. Let's take dogs as an example. We all know that dogs are toothy creatures. It's known that, for example, the pit bull bites very hard, and the grip of the amstaff is such that it can hang in the air using its teeth alone, caught on something. But how do scientists know the exact bite force of these four-legged creatures? There are two ways. The first is safe and involves biting a bar. The dog bites a block of wood, after which scientists measure the depth of the marks. calculate the density of the wood, take into account the weight of the dog and the size of its jaws, and get a figure in newtons. The second method is to use a sleeve. This sleeve is similar to the one designed for dog training. You can see the footage right now of dogs biting a person's arm protected by just such a dense sleeve. A sleeve with a sensor is used to determine the bite force. The dog handler puts it on, the dog bites the sleeve, and it's no longer necessary to measure any marks. The device gives a fairly accurate value. By the way, according to the bite force, the leader among dogs is not the pit bull at all, as one might think, but the Kangal shepherd dog. This wolfhound bites with a force of 1,700 newtons. This almost corresponds to the value of a young saltwater crocodile. Speaking of them, these crocodiles right now are considered the most powerful land biters on the planet. The bite force of a huge saltwater crocodile, weighing more than a ton, exceeds 34,000 newtons. It's an incredible value. But how do you measure the force of the jaws of such a dangerous predator? No protective sleeve can save you. Of course not. That's why scientists use a special device with a loop on a stick. The crocodile is given the stick, it bites the loop thinking that it's prey, and the device records the force of jaws compression. It's an effective method but dangerous. Sometimes the crocodile can get carried away with the game. For example, in this case it ripped the device out of the scientist's hands. There's another method that's suitable for small crocodiles. The reptile is briefly tied up, forced to open its mouth, and a measuring device is placed directly in its mouth. This method allows you to determine the bite force much more accurately because the reptile does not twitch. It's much more difficult to measure the bite force of marine predators, for example, a shark. Therefore, in this case, we have to be satisfied with the method used with large saltwater crocodiles. A measuring device in the form of bait is lowered to the predator. It bites it, and scientists record the value. However, not all marine predators' bite force can be measured this way. Orcas, for example, do not fall for this. In this case, you can do without devices and just do complex calculations. Recently, scientists have found out that the killer whale can bite with a force of more than 84,000 newtons. In comparison with the orcas, even the saltwater crocodile doesn't bite but only nibbles. Scientists obtained information about the bite force of killer whales based on data on the structure of their bodies, as well as the shape and type of their prey. In the same way, scientists calculate the bite force of many other predators and simply dangerous animals, from lions to hippos. And in the same way, scientists calculate the bite force of extinct animals. Of course, no instruments are of any use here. Researchers have to work only with bones and fossils. According to them, they conclude how large the animal was, what it could feed on, and this information allows them to calculate the estimated bite force. The current all-time leader is Deinosuchus, a prehistoric giant crocodile that lived 80 million years ago. The bite force of Deinosuchus, weighing about 10 tons, exceeds 350,000 newtons. That is, this reptile bit 10 times stronger than saltwater crocodiles and about 200 times stronger than us. Yes, by the way, the human bite force is about 1,500 newtons. That's not much in comparison with extremely dangerous predators, but our jaws are actually stronger than even those of some wild cats and dogs. That's all, guys. What from this episode surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.